Ralph Waldo Emerson. In his native United States, Emerson became more revered as a literary figure, an essayist, and poet than as a philosopher. But his founding role in Transcendentalism drew admiration from the likes of Friedrich Nietzsche and other philosophers. Transcendentalism may be regarded as an American branch of British and German early 19th century Romanticism, albeit influenced by Unitarian Christianity. In terms of ethics, it regarded human beings as inherently good. In terms of metaphysics, it regarded nature as inherently good, but subject to corruption by some of society's institutions. For this reason, the ideal man or woman was of independent mind and, to use Emerson's own term, was self-reliant. In terms of theology, Transcendentalism was tinged with pantheism. That is, the divine was deemed immanent in natural creation, and God could best be known through his natural works. Ralph Waldo Emerson was born on May 25, 1803 in Boston, the son of a prominent clergyman. He entered Harvard when he was 14, graduated, taught at a school run by his brother, and in 1825 enrolled in the Harvard Divinity School. His true education, however, was earned in the voluminous reading he did on his own, devouring volumes of history, literature, philosophy, and theology. He was so intense a student that both his general health and his eyesight suffered. In 1829, he became junior pastor at Boston's Second Church, resigning in 1832 because he objected to the practice of the Lord's Supper, or Eucharist. In 1836, Emerson self-published a long essay entitled Nature, which laid out the fundamentals of American Transcendentalism. The next year, he delivered The American Scholar as a Phi Beta Kappa address at Harvard, a plea for American intellectuals to break free of the prejudices of the old world and create a literature, art, and philosophy of and for the new world. His Harvard Divinity School address, delivered in 1838, was so radical in its religious views, savoring as it did of both pantheism and deism, that he was not invited to speak again at Harvard for 29 years. Having essentially renounced both the pulpit and academia, Emerson found himself pressed for a living and embarked on a distinguished and spectacularly successful career on the lecture circuit, beginning in 1839.
Are you a philosophy student, or just have a general interest in philosophy? Since ancient times, brilliant philosophical teachings and dialogues taught by great luminous minds have deeply elevated the way we think and live. The Complete Philosophy Primer is a comprehensive, organized, easy-to-read, and all-encompassing guide specifically written for students in their first college-level philosophy course, as well as anyone with an interest in philosophy. With this jam-packed philosophical guide, you will optimize your knowledge in philosophy, logic, ethics, its history, and branches. Learn philosophical concepts, term definitions, and biographies. Find lists of essential books, films, blogs, websites, and other resources. Improve your writing skills, learn how to argue effectively, and most of all, learn how to be a better student. Order your copy today to philosophize your mind and illuminate your wisdom.
For the next 4 decades, he did what few philosophers have been able to do. He made philosophy both public and popular. From 1840 to 1844, Emerson edited The Dial with fellow Transcendentalist Margaret Fuller. He drew upon his lectures to create 2 distinguished and popular sets of essays. Essays, First Series, 1841, and Essays, Second Series, 1844. These established him as a philosopher. With his financial fortunes on the rise, Emerson in 1844 bought land on the shore of Walden Pond, on which he allowed the naturalist and philosopher Henry David Thoreau, 1817 to 1862, to build a rude cabin which inspired Thoreau's masterpiece, Walden, 1854. A practical experiment in living authentically and according to the transcendental tenet of self-reliance. Inspired by the experimental quasi-utopian collective at Brook Farm, Emerson assembled around himself in Concord, Massachusetts, an informal community of kindred spirits including Thoreau, the novelist Nathaniel Hawthorne, the philosopher and social reformer Margaret Fuller, reformer Bronson Alcott, and the minor New England poet Ellery Channing. During this period, Emerson became an outspoken abolitionist, adding slavery to his menu of lecture subjects. He wrote and lectured well into the 1870s, but his final years were marked by an intellectual decline suggestive of dementia. He died on April 27, 1882, in his Concord home. The core of Emerson's Transcendentalism is found in his 1836 Nature, in which he portrays nature as the perfect medium through which the divine is communicated in humanity. He spoke of an existential epiphany evoked by the natural environment in which he felt himself become a transparent eyeball through which the currents of universal being circulated. Thus, nature, properly experienced, transports one to realms beyond nature, which Emerson implied were divine. Within nature, the individual becomes one with the experience of nature, and the seer becomes the actions of seeing. "I am nothing," he writes, "I see all." Emerson proposed in The American Scholar that the philosopher would evolve himself into a new species of humanity, man thinking. His thought, however, was to be liberated from the second-hand book knowledge. "Only so much do I know as I have lived." The true philosopher should live an active and self-reliant intellectual life that opens his mind to the divine soul. The American Scholar, he proposed, will create in America, for the first time in history, a nation of men. Throughout his essays collected in 1841 and 1844, Emerson fused philosophy and poetry. Although he wrote verse and was widely recognized as an important American poet, his philosophical prose is more provocative and original in its use of metaphor. Indeed, perhaps no 19th century philosopher has so effectively bent literature to philosophic ends or so skillfully used philosophy to produce literature.